Hey friends, this is Toby Eunice of Garage Prospecting with another tailing runs, and today we're going to be running the tailings from the Reserve Blend Gold Paydirt that we got from panmoregold.com. So it looks like this right now. In the container, we'll take a better look at it in just a little while. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh the amount of gold that we collected in the first run. Just so that we have something to compare to. Then I'm going to classify the tailings, and I'm going to run them through these size screens, 10 mesh, 20 mesh, 40 mesh, and 60 mesh. And the plan is to put the plus 10, I'm just going to pan those out. The minus 10, I'm going to put those through the MiningMagnets cleanup sluice. The minus 20, I'm going to put that through the Desert Fox spiral gold panning machine. The minus 40, I'm going to put through the Blue Bowl, and if we get any at all, the minus 60, I'm going to try running it on the USA Prospector Miller Table that we got over the weekend. Then what I'll do is I'll weigh any gold that we got from the tailings run, from today's run, and then we'll weigh the original gold and the tailing run gold together and see if we picked up any. And then finally, we'll take a look at it under the microscope, okay? So let's start with the classifications. Give me a minute to set up. My bad, I promised I was gonna weigh the original run gold out before we started. So this is our vial. And this one had a couple of little, I don't know if you'd call them pickers, but they were pretty good sized gold chunks. But I kind of remember this being around, yeah, 3.6. So we got 0.360, 3.355 of a gram. So about a third of a gram in the original run. Now you got to remember this was about 4 pounds of pay dirt originally. So we were getting about a tenth of a gram, a little bit less than a tenth of a gram a pound. So we'll put this aside for now and see what we get out of the new tailings run, see if we get anything extra, okay? Okay, here we go with the 10 mesh. All right, this is what we may or may not pan out. I don't see anything coming out of it. All right, let me just lay this all out for you. Here's where we're at. So this is the plus 10 that I was planning to pan out, but there is A, not enough material in there to make it worth the while, and B, I'm sure that if I saw anything besides these flakes of mica, it would be worth it. So I'm probably not going to pan that out. Now, I do have a solution coming. It's not going to come till April. I bought a mighty mill from eBay, but the gentleman that makes them literally one order at a time. Well, he batches up a bunch of orders. So the next set of orders is going to be shipped around, I think he said the first week in April, meaning because of its weight and it's coming from Oregon, I won't have it until towards the last half of April. But what I'm going to start doing is, as I get more and more of this plus 10 material, and this is just a small sample, sometimes like in the case of the Blueberry Tundra Delight, I had a full bowl of this stuff. I'm going to put it through that Mighty Mill and powder it up, and then add it to the, before I put it in the pan, I'm going to add it to the mesh testing and the classifying and see what we can get out of it, okay? But for this time, I think we're just going to let that one go. This is the -10 material. There's a good deal of it, and I think we've tested this before. All right, sorry about the interruption, guys. It was my Virginia daughter, and it was FaceTime with my two grandbaby boys, my two Virginia grandbaby boys, so couldn't pass that up. So as I was saying, we've pretty much run the magnet through all this stuff, and there's not anything there. Am I doing it wrong? A little bit there, sorry. So I don't think it's worth running through the MiningMagnets dry magnetic separator, but I'm happy to see that there's magnetite in here, because that means that's black sand, so it should work on the Miller table. All right, so that's where we are. I've got to set up the wash plant, and then we'll start processing this material. What we've got here is the -10 that's supposed to go through the MiningMagnets cleanup sluice. This has the Miracle mat in it. I've already added jet dry, and I have, what do I do with the brush? And I've brushed the bubbles out of it, so it's ready to go. All right? I have the voltage regulated power supply at 6.5, which is just about enough to fill up this weir here. I think that'll be plenty. I do put it in dry because I do have the weir. I'm putting it in the weir. It's going to have plenty of time to get wet. Let's see how we do. Got some gravels up there. I see gravels, but from the angle that I'm at right now, I don't see any gold, but that again could just be based on the angle that I'm at. All right. So like the last time, there's just a lot of mica in here. All the shine stuff still apples. Like I'm supposed to say that, so everything is indicated that has to be up. Is Joe? I don't know if you can see it, but we got ourselves one little tiny piece right there that I could probably pick up with some tweezers, which is what I'll do. And we'll go to the -20 and put it in the Desert Fox sluice. All right, so we did get one little tiny piece out of it. Not bad. I'm not complaining. All right, guys, another little break here. All right, guys, this is the Desert Fox spiral go padding machine. We're going to run the -20 material through that. I've got it set up at optimum, and that is the blue bowl is at 45 degrees. The water is on medium, halfway between heavy and light. So I'm going to turn on the DC regulator, and I've got that set to 12 volts. It looks like between the blue bowl and the motor it's drawing 1.60 amps, so we're well within nominal. And I got my spoon, and we'll do what we did last time. We'll pour the material in first, and then as we decide how to move forward, we'll decide whether we're going to tip it further forward to get rid of material up here, or tip it back so that we get material going up the spiral. I need this. All right, I'm going to be quiet. looking at things down here. Moved it forward just to get rid of some of the material because the material wasn't moving. I think I've got one little tiny gold speck right there that I'll probably just snuff up instead of going up the spiral. So I'm looking at the cup. There's nothing in the cup, but I did have it all the way forward to 55 degrees. So all I've got right here is that one little piece of gold. I will snuff that up and we will move on to the minus 40 material and the blue bowl. So I think that makes 4 specks so far. All right, guys, let me take a break here, get everything set up. All right, we're back with a blue bowl, and I run my blue bowl just a little bit differently. As you can see, my hose is wide open because I'm using the regulator, the DC power supply, to control the pump. Right now I have it at running at 5.5 volts. This is a 12 volt pump, so it's a little less than half. And that has me about an inch and a quarter below the top lip of the bowl. So this is the minus 40 mesh, minus 40. And we're just going to start pouring it in here and let it rock and roll around. Got a little bit of weight to it. Lighter stuff is already starting to climb up the volcano, so I'm going to be quiet. So I've got an overhead light here, and that's what causes the kind of reflections. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 specks in there at least, maybe a little bit more. But also there's a lot of black sand in there. So I'm thinking I might add this to the minus 60 that's going to go through the Miller table. That'd probably be easier rather than trying to snuff it all up. So I think that's what I'm going to do. All right. We did get some out of the blue bowl, and I guess the bottom line here is our first pass at this pay dirt seems to be pretty good. We're getting, 3 specks on the sluice, a couple of specks on the spiral, what looks like 3 or 4 specks here. So I should be real happy with that first run. I think we're going to end up like we were last week, where we're just not going to have enough weight to make any difference unless there's some kind of weird thing going on in the minus 60 when we run it through the Miller table. But this is pretty small stuff here, so I think what I'm going to do, and it's very flat, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to the minus 60 to run through the Miller table, all right? And that's the next step in the process. All right, guys, so here we are with the USA Prospector Miller table. It's pretty easy to set up. I had no problems setting it up. I'm sorry about the overhead light creating that spider-like shadow, or 5-legged spider, I guess, shadow. It's the only way I can keep it lighted. So in terms of the instructions, they said, let it run for 10 minutes. Wash the surface off with some dishwashing soap. Let it run for 10 minutes. So now I've got a container full of bubbles in here, but it seems to be working okay. I did put some jet dry in it, although after the soap I don't think I needed it. So a couple of things I found out, I discovered, was the hose that they provide for connecting the pump that they provide is nowhere near as long enough to get that pump to sit on the bottom. It just kind of hangs in the water. And the bad thing about that is that then what you have to do is fill the tub with more water than it requires. I mean, that's not a big deal, but it is, and I'm not going to call it a shortcoming. I would replace the hose with something longer so that that pump can sit flat on the bottom. It's pumping fine right now. It's not collecting any air. So the second thing is the pump is a 120 volt kind of koi pond pump like you'd buy at a Home Depot or a Harbor Freight. So that means you have no control, well, you don't have power to control the speed of the water, which is what I like doing with all my with my sluice, with my Desert Fox spiral panning machine, with a blue bowl. I can control the water flow by using the regulated power supply. So I did order from Amazon a variable speed controller, 420 volts. It should get here tomorrow. Now, I did notice that on one side here, leveling this way is not difficult at all. And this device, what is the right, polycast magnetic protractor, it's supposed to stick to it, gives me the ability to level it. But the other thing that you want to look at is exactly where the flow of water is. So I can see that although the flow of water comes fine here, that it ends up over here on this side. So that tells me that I need to adjust this side a little bit further down to even it out. Okay, and that I found out, if you get that right, I found out puts you at 0 on here, right, 0 degrees, which is where you want it, of course. It's even from here to there. So the other thing, because you don't have control of the water, power control of the water, you need to control its performance, its speed another way. And the way that you do that is by setting the angle of attack. I don't know what else you call it, the angle of the device in this direction. So right now, I have it set at 4 degrees. I found out that was slow enough to give time for the gold. I put in a couple of small spoons in here already just to test it and see how it performs. You may not be able to see it, but there's a tiny little piece of gold there that didn't get washed away. So the only way that you have to control the flow of the water is by raising and lowering the side adjustment screws. I think that will change later on as we get the variable rate controller in there, variable speed controller in there. So 4 degrees this way, 0 degrees this way. Let me turn off my phone here. Okay, 0 degrees this way. So, and I've already collected a tiny bit of gold right from the top. So this is the -60 mesh here. I did add some water to it because this company says add water before you start putting it into the Miller table. The other thing that I found out is that the plumber's tape, the Teflon tape, is so that you can put into the vials. So the gold apparently doesn't want to, as you pour it into the vials, you don't want it slipping past the vial and into the water below because then you're stuck. So let's see what happens. Oh, the other thing that I noticed is as I lowered the angle of attack from where it started at about 7 degrees to where it is now, about 4 degrees, this is going to sound funny, but just take my word for it. The noise of the water spilling here changes. And it changes from something that sounds a little bit like a waterfall to something that sounds a little bit more like, I don't know, a rain, I don't know what it sounds like. But you can actually hear the difference between 7 degrees and as you get further and further down to 4 degrees, you hear the not just the volume, but the tone of the water as it spills into the tailings catchment in here change to much lower. So I just felt like the water was moving too fast for this 60 mesh that I was running. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens here. Okay, well, that's not a good start. So I'm just going to splash this in there, a spoon at a time. And my goal is not to lose that piece of gold right there. So it's moving the black sands as well as the blonde sands. It's doing what it's supposed to. And I'm going to keep it at a slow pace for this first run. So here we go. We'll start speeding up things here. I mean, on the camera, so you guys don't have to wait while this all takes place. All right, that's the end of the run. I did capture some little tiny specks of gold right there. Turn off the overhead, just so if we can cut the glare here. All right. Again, you probably can't see them, but there's 5 little specks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see any other on the table. This one right here had a tendency to move, so when I would brush it up, it would come down a little bit further. But the others, as small as they are pretty much stuck in place. They're not going anywhere. I mean, I suppose I could lose them here now, but I'm not going to. So yeah, even if I disturb the water in front of them, they don't move much. So good news and bad news. Bad news is I don't have enough gold in all of what I've done today to get away. There's not enough in there. I will snuff these up and I will add them to the vial for the Panmore guys. But the good news is the first pass that we made on this pay dirt several weeks ago was a pretty good pass. We didn't lose too much, and that was before I had this Miller table to tell me that I had this very fine gold that I was missing. So this is what we did. We ran the -10 through the MiningMagnets cleanup sluice. We didn't find anything. We ran the -20 in the Desert Fox spiral gold panning machine. We found, I think, one little tiny bit. We ran the blue bowl, or the -40 through the blue bowl, and we found just a little tiny bit more. And now we've run the -60 through the Miller table here, the USA Prospector Miller Table, and it produced something, but not much. So again, the bad news is we don't have enough to add to our collection. The good news is all of this stuff is doing its job like it's supposed to, and I'm very happy with it. So as I find out more about the Miller table, I will add it to the information that I provide you all, but let me turn the light back on here. I will provide it to you all, but as far as I'm concerned, this new USA Prospector Miller table did what it's supposed to, okay? I will give you a wrap up. Maybe we'll take a look at the gold that we do have under the microscope. All right, okay guys, I thought I'd show you some of the gold that we found today under the microscope. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the flakes that were that we discovered that came out on the Miller table. So you can see that even though when you're looking at them from far away, they look pretty unflaky, as you get progressively closer, and I'm going to magnify these even more so you can see them down in there. There we go. So those little tiny flakes that we saw on the Miller table, this is what they look like under a microscope. So that's not actually another flake, so it's just 5 pieces there. But this is what the Miller table caught, including that round one there. Now, this is, and I'm going to show you a comparison to the gold that we found before, that we had already collected for this sample. And I'm going to have to go up and over here. I hope I don't go past it. Let me zoom out so I can have more room to work with here. There we are. So this was the gold that we captured from the first run several weeks ago that amounted to around 0.33 grams. So it was around 33 hundredths of a gram. But there's some really good looking stuff in there, including one that I would call a picker. Let's look at it a little bit closer. Or 2 maybe. This is my favorite here. This one right there, because it's just got a lot of character and a lot of texture, and just, you know, looks like you imagine, like if you had a nugget that was the size of the palm of your hand, it would look the same way. This is another one. So the depth of field on these is very short, so it's hard to get everything in focus. But pretty good looking, and you collect some of that black material if you can figure out. I don't know what this is. This one, I don't think it's gold, but it seems to get trapped with everything. Yeah. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thanks for watching. You know, sometimes I literally will be here for hours looking at this stuff. A little stone captured, a little rock captured inside the gold. Decided it didn't want to leave. What is that about? Yeah, a little bit of black sand. Now keep in mind, what you're looking at is gold that is literally the size of a grain of sand. I try to remind people of that so that they don't feel like I'm trying to mislead them here. But you can see some of that black sand is actually way smaller than the gold, but it gets trapped in there. There's a piece of quartz as well. A little piece of quartz in there. Let's focus in on that a little bit better. This little piece of quartz, maybe calcite. All right, like I said, I could stay here all day. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll have another bag of pay dirt to run for you next week.